before you can have a holy ground experience, not only must God prepare you through the ordinary experiences of life, but when the time is right, when God does whatever he does to get your attention, you got to then come and check it out. Like Moses, you have got to purpose in your mind to turn aside and see this great sight. Far too often, we're too busy doing what we do to check out the bush. We have resigned ourselves to our current ordinary existence. We've decided that most of our life is spent and this is as good as it's going to get. And I'm just going to keep on doing what I've been doing. I'm satisfied with a life of mediocrity. But if you want to discover your unique mission in life, then you got to see the burning bush and check it out. Moses wasn't sure what it was he was looking at. He wasn't sure what was burning or why. But he knew something out of the ordinary was going on. He knew that a burning bush should be consumed, and therefore something supernatural was happening right before his very eyes. Moses said, I've got to turn aside and check this thing out. I've got to leave these sheep for a minute and check this bush out. When God has set something on fire, church, y'all better take a minute and check it out. Check it out. I got to leave these old friends of mine for a minute and check it out. I got to put down my girlfriend and my boyfriend for a minute, and I got to go check this out. I got to let my children wait for a minute while I go check out this supernatural thing that God is doing over here on the mountainside. Let me pop my calf for a minute. Let me put down my knitting needle for a minute. Let me put down my grandbaby for a moment. I've got to stop partying for a minute. Johnny Walker and Red step aside. I've got to check out this thing that is burning up on the mountain. That I might turn aside and check out this supernatural move of God. The text says Moses turned, and when the Lord saw that he turned, then God called him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And Moses said, here I am, God. Don't get so busy that you can't see the glory of God, nor hear his call. Some of us are just too busy, I say. And the sad thing is, we are busy doing nothing. In a hurry, going nowhere. And we're missing our call. Answer the call. You know it's God. Because he's the one that's not shouting at you. You know it's God. He's the one that is speaking in that still, small voice. God doesn't shout at us, but he comes to us gently and softly. The hymnologist put it this way. He said, softly and tenderly, Jesus is calling. Calling for you and for me. See on the portal, he is waiting and he's watching. Watching for you and for me. Come home. Come home. Ye who are weary, come home. Softly, I say, tenderly, Jesus is calling. Calling all sinners. Come home. But rather than answer the call, we're checking out our spiritual caller ID. And we are ignoring his call on our life. We like what we're doing too much to answer the call. We become so comfortable with some bad habits that we don't want to answer the call. But if you want to know and fulfill your unique mission in life, you got to answer like Moses. You got to say, Lord, here I am. I'm glad that Pastor Baskerville answered the call when God determined that he wanted his word preached on yet another corner in Washington, D.C. I'm glad Pastor Baskerville said, here I am. He could have said, no, Lord. There's nobody but me and Grace. He could have said, get somebody else. But he answered the call. And I'm glad that Pastor Samuel Mitchell answered the call. Some 39 years later, when only 6 members were still hanging on to the church. I'm glad he turned and he looked and he saw the keepers of the flame. Saw Mother Baskerville and Mother Bird. Saw Sister Littlejohn and Sister Wood. Saw Deacon David Baskerville and saw Sister Marie White. Saw the keepers of the flame and said, Lord, what would you have me to do? He answered the call. But let us not misunderstand me. Because every call is not a call to preach. Every call is not a call to pastor. But every call is a call to work. And so I'm glad that not only Baskerville and Mitchell answered, but I'm glad that Grace Baskerville and Roberta Mitchell answered. I'm glad that they answered the call to marry these men of God. I'm glad that they chose to stand with them and to minister alongside them. I'm glad that they work in the vineyard, that God's people and God's church might roll on. I'm glad that they answered the call. Every call is a call to minister. So when Moses answered the call, the Lord said, now take off your shoes. For the place where you're now standing is holy ground. It was not holy by nature, but it was holy because of God's presence. And we need to understand that when we come into God's presence, we can't come any old kind of way. God prepared us for our holy ground experience. Our journey with all of its ups and its downs, its trials and its tribulations, its tears and its triumphs, is leading us and preparing us for our holy ground experience. They are bringing us to the bush. And now that we've been prepared and placed in his presence, God says to us, take off your shoes, for the ground on which you are about to stand is holy ground. When you come into the tabernacle, you can't come any old kind of way, because there's a bush burning. And whenever you're in the presence of God, the ground that you're standing on is holy ground. So you got to take your shoes off. And I don't mean your physical, I'm not talking about your pumps. I don't mean your physical shoes. I'm talking about your spiritual shoes. Yeah. That stuff that you've been walking around in all week long. That hateful attitude. That anger and that hostility. That warring spirit. You need to take that stuff off. Your pride and your pity. Your flaming tongue and your temper. You need to take that off. That junk that you picked up while you were walking the street and it stuck to the bottom of your soul. You need to pry that stuff out.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely.
Take it off. Because the ground that you're standing on is holy ground. Holy ground.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
When you come to God, when you come to the bush, seeking the purpose for your life, you can't come any kind of way.